Miami, Florida. Did y'all know that Miami was the only major city that was developed and planned by a woman? If you didn't, don't worry, I did some digging. Let's get into it. Now, I have to start the story off with Ephraim Stuyvesant, all right? He was a businessman out of Ohio who wanted to come to Florida with his wife and retire. So they ended up in the Miami area and they enjoyed it. They liked the land. They actually brought their family down to look at the land to see if it was good enough. Now that's when his daughter comes into place. This is Julia Tuttle, okay? Julia came down from Ohio to visit the area that her parents were looking at to see if it was okay. Now in the Miami area at this time, it was mostly farmland and citrus groves, all right? But Julia had to go back to Ohio because her family was up there and she had some things that she had to handle. Now, when Julia gets back to Ohio, her husband ends up passing away. But she then realized that her husband was horrible managing their money, and they were broke. Now, to make some extra money, Julia turned her house into a powder room for young women, and she made good money doing it. But in the midst of doing all of that, her father now passes away, and he left her a lot of money, but he also left her his estate in Miami. Now, with her new fortune, she ended up selling her home up in Ohio, and she got on a steamboat and headed straight for the Miami area. Now, when Julia got here, she landed in the Fort Dallas area, okay? But she got right to work. The first thing she did is that she bought 640 acres, which is now the downtown Miami area. Now, Julia built a home in the Biscayne area, and she wanted to actually start a city at this time, but she knew if she was gonna start a city, she needed to be able to get, people back and forth from in and out of the city. Now, that's where Henry Flagler comes into play, because at this time, if you wanted a railroad built, his company was the one that was building it. So you needed to get in contact with Henry Flagler. Now, Julia sent out multiple letters to get in contact with Henry, but Henry was just not interested at all, and he ignored most of her letters. But nature was on Julia's side, because in 1894, there was a Florida freeze, and it devastated the area of Florida. It ruined all of the citrus in the central and northern Florida area. Now, I don't know how true this is, but the last message that Julia sent out to Henry, she ended up sending a message and a big bouquet of citrus and flowers to prove to him that things are growing down in the Miami area. Now, it's unknown if Julia hit up Henry again or if Henry actually contacted Julia, but the railroad to Miami was okayed and they started building the railroad. Now, Julia understood that she's not a developer, she's not a real business person like that, so she made a deal with Henry Flagler. She said, look, if you bring the railroad down here, all right, I'll give you 50% of the land real estate that I owned, and I'll also give you another small piece of land so you can put a hotel on the land. Now, that's exactly what he did. He built a hotel on his portion of the land. But Henry Flagler brought a lot to the Miami area when it came to development, just because he knew so many businessmen and he was the guy to talk to. Now, a few years later in 1898, Julia ends up passing away. But it didn't stop anything, because everything that she put into play was working, and the city of Miami was growing at a rapid pace. Now, they do have a statue of Julia Tuttle in the Miami area. If you know where it's at, please put it in the comments. I would Google it, but it'd be funny for y'all to put it. And they also built an expressway after her, the Julia Tuttle Causeway in Miami. I don't know where this is. I've been to Miami a few times, but I don't think I've ever crossed this bridge. Where's this bridge at for all my Miami people? Now, we all know today Miami is one of the most visited places in the world, all right? And just to think, it was all started by a woman. The more you know. Peace.